What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Bridging the Geekdoms. I'm your host, Robert Slavinsky, and today I am by myself. Colton nor Ken could get out of work in time for this. We had to adjust the schedule this week. I ended up going to Monday Night Raw with my son and my brother-in-law on Monday. Wasn't able to do the show then. Was going to do it Tuesday. Was just way too tired. Finally got to Thursday. So this is where we're at. We're here Thursday doing the show, doing the thing, all for you. And boy, was this last week absolutely hectic and crazy with different things going on for sure. Now, the first thing I do want to talk about is I do want to kind of give my reaction slash review of episode 2 of Halo, which came out today, actually, which I got to say I was real excited about. And let me see here. So episode 2, a lot of people had issues with this episode, and I can kind of understand it. They've been calling it, it's a drastic change from what episode 1 was, because episode 1 was just kind of in your face action for the first like half, maybe 3/4 of that episode. It was just in your face action. It was absolutely amazing, though. I loved it. Going into this episode, though, it wasn't so much about the action, where it was more of a character study of who Master Chief is and where he is at this point in time in his career and in his life. And I really, really did enjoy that. I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it did a really good job of just kind of diving into the characters and understanding who it's helping everybody understand who Spartan 117 John is, and grasping why he did what he did in episode 1, why he took the artifact, the relic, and he ran away from the UNSC. And then you understand why it was so difficult for him to do that. And now why in this episode, he then almost immediately turns around and goes back to the UNSC because of what we get in this episode. And I really, really enjoyed that. Again, I would have liked to have seen a little bit of action, and we didn't get that, but that's fine. I think this is what, 8 or 9 episodes, maybe 10 episodes this season. There's going to be plenty of time for action in this series, but we have to remember that they are kind of building this for people who have never seen Halo or played Halo or read Halo before. So they have to dive in and really do these little character things to get us to be attached to who they are. Some concerns I do have is, are they replacing the Arbiter with the human that's in the Covenant? I am a little worried about that. I hope they don't go that route. I hope that we do eventually get the Arbiter. But right now, it's a little concerning with that, and how and what they're doing with that character. Because in Halo lore, for those of you who don't know, the human race are the ones who are basically the ancestors, or the rightful heirs to what the Forerunners, the Halo rings, who created the Halo rings and everything. We're the rightful heirs to all of that, essentially, for lack of a better term. The show is kind of making it look like it's just Master Chief and this one other being who is under control of the Covenant, or working with the Covenant. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. I really enjoyed this episode. Again, it wasn't as great and action-packed as episode 1, but I really, truly did enjoy it. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I think you really need to. I think this is a show that people who are fans of things like Star Trek, Star Wars, and great sci-fi adventures, I think are going to really like this show when all is said and done. I know there's some people who don't like them showing Master Chief's face so much. I want to say probably about 80 to 90% of this episode, he doesn't wear his helmet. And that's a complete change from the video games. We've actually never seen his face in the video games. He's always wearing his helmet. But it's a very different type of storytelling they're doing here. So I hope people understand that, and I hope people stick with it, because we are getting a season 2, and we're only 2 episodes in. We're only 2 episodes in. So let's take a look at what they're going to do with episodes 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. All right. So that is Halo. Next, I kind of want to talk about this here. Oh man, my typing is just horrendous today. I want to talk about Moon Knight, which the first episode premiered just this week. And oh man, that is a trippy ride if I ever saw one myself. Oh man, it was really trippy. I mean, there's a lot of it that I was kind of like, some of the VFX wasn't great. And while I completely understand why they waited until the last 5 seconds of the episode to show Moon Knight, um, I think that was just a little too long. I think that they could have sped up that process and giving us Moon Knight a little earlier. It doesn't hurt the show at all. I'm still interested in seeing episode 2. I think, though, probably my biggest issue with it was the fact that it reminded me of Venom. When Conchu is talking to Steven, and it's that voiceover, like the inside, like speaking to the voices in his head. It reminded me too much of Venom, and I do not like those movies at all. And I think the way they handle the relationship with Eddie and Venom in those films is just terrible. And it reminded me of that. And I'm not saying that it's the same thing. It just gave me it worried me a little bit. It worried me a little bit. But again, I am looking forward to this. I thought it was a great way to start off this. Ethan Hawke was great. He ate up every frame that he was in. Oscar Isaac, come on. The way he played his multiple personalities and not knowing what is going on was absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. I thought he did a fantastic job there. Let's see. Again, I mean, it was just a great episode. A great way to start things off. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's the greatest Marvel thing on Disney Plus yet." The best first episode. Look, I'm a stickler for Loki. I loved Loki, and to this point, I still think Loki is the bar that has to be met when it comes to the Marvel Disney Plus series. But I gotta say, this was a good episode. This was a good start, and I have been looking forward to the Supernatural. So I can't wait to see where it goes from here. All right. Next thing I want to kind of talk about is a little bit of Star Wars, because that was kind of the talk of the town last week. And I unfortunately missed out on that because it came about like right after. Oh no, we didn't have a show last week because we did the Us United. That's what happened. So I missed out on it a little bit. But uh we had a big conversation, or there was a big conversation going on social media about Mace Windu, and how Samuel L. Jackson talked to Bryce Dallas Howard, who is known to have directed episodes of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, and she has just done an amazing job in the Star Wars universe. People want her directing Star Wars, get her own show, movie, what have you. But Samuel Jackson had a chance. He said on a podcast, the only person that he's ever talked to and had a chance to talk to about returning as Mace Windu to Star Wars was Bryce Dallas Howard. And that started a whole big, thing in the fandom. Like, should Mace Windu come back? Can he come back? Why should he come back? How can he come back? And, I put out a poll on Twitter. I put things everywhere on social media. I just wanted to kind of gauge people's thoughts on this. I did a couple shorts, TikTok, stuff like that about it. And, it's crazy to think that there's a lot of people who don't want Mace Windu to come back. And, I've always had this stance when it comes to any pop culture thing, any kind of movie or anything like that, is if you don't see a body, the person isn't dead. And I really feel like we could get a return of Mace Windu. And I think the best way to do that would be to not only bring Mace Windu back and kind of give him like his due, his justice, but you can also give the fans of Boba Fett what they want as well. Because we know that Boba Fett has been pretty haunted by the fact that Mace Windu killed his father, Jango Fett. To come and this is my pitch to Lucasfilm, whether they take it or not, whatever. But I think a great pitch is this: it's a year since Order 66 occurred, and Vader, the Emperor, they're building up the Empire right now. They have not decided on having all these Inquisitors yet. Maybe they have one or two Jedi hunters underneath Vader, but they don't really have the entire Inquisitor group together at this point in time. But they're still hunting down Jedi. And how do they go about doing that? Well, they put out a call to the bounty hunters in the galaxy, and that's how you get Boba Fett pulled into it. Well, the one Jedi that Vader is specifically hunting down because he felt his presence on Coruscant some time ago or at some point is Mace Windu. And he sort of blames Mace Windu for what happened to him. But Vader is not having any luck in hunting him down, so he hires the bounty hunters. Boba Fett hears who one of the marks is. While Boba Fett was reluctant to help the Empire, he does decide to hunt down Mace Windu himself. And you can eventually put it to an epic fight that they have. Whether, a lot of people have been saying that they don't want to see Boba Fett kill Mace Windu. They don't want that to happen. I, on the other hand, think that it would be okay. I think Boba Fett is more than adequate, more than capable of defeating Mace Windu, but there's a lot of people who don't think he is. And I've heard some great ideas and thoughts about bringing Vader into it. So where Boba Fett finds Mace Windu and they're fighting and they're in the middle of a battle, but Mace seems to get the upper hand. Vader comes in and there's an epic lightsaber battle between Vader and Mace. Eventually Mace Windu dies. And I think it would be a really cool 3-hour-long, 3-episode mini-series of sorts for Disney Plus. I think that would be a really cool idea to do it. Each hour focusing on one aspect of what's going on. You don't want to make this a big, long movie or anything like that. It doesn't even need to be 3 hours long. I think a short little one-shot type of thing would work for that and do justice. And who better than to get Bryce Dallas Howard to direct that? I think she would do phenomenal with it. But let me know your thoughts on that. What do you think? Do you think Mace Windu should come back? Do you think it's possible for him to come back? Do you want him to come back? I want to know your thoughts in the comments below on all of that. And with that, another thing that's been coming up a lot lately is who can take the reins and do some things in Star Wars, meaning directors. We've seen J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Taika Waititi. We've had so many different directors come in over the last really like 4 or 5 years, and that's about all it's been. And, I think it's time to get some new blood and something different into all of this. And I honestly think we could see some pretty cool stories if they go that route, like I'm saying to do with Mace Windu, and making it like a short little one shot of sorts, and bringing in random directors who've always wanted to do a Star Wars. Let them do a short like that, see how it is, see how it turns out. And if they work out really well, if people really like their style, their vision, then they can possibly do something bigger. And I think that's a really cool idea for Star Wars. It's almost like that anime that we're getting from Star Wars Visions. It's similar to that, where you're going to have these offshoot stories that, yeah, they can be, canonically connected, but they're not anything majorly important in the grand scheme of the Skywalker saga or what have you. Just really cool stories and in-depth stories. But they're short, quick, one-shot little things. And you bring in just random directors to do that and allow them to put their little flair. Imagine something with Guillermo del Toro or, even Tarantino. Get Spielberg in there and different things like that, and let them do their own thing and their little flair and see what happens, see what turns out. And I honestly think that would be really cool. But I want to know your thoughts on who you would want to see as a director taking on the Star Wars universe. So put that down in the comments below. Let me know who you would like to see direct a Star Wars. All right, guys, I'm still here. And we're kind of moving through because it's just me and I'm just talking about myself and nobody's watching, not getting any comments right now. So it's like my old podcast. When Colton and I were doing just podcasts, we weren't doing live things. We were simply just doing podcasts. And we would sit there sometimes and we just bullshit and talk for an hour. And that would be our show essentially. And then over the last couple of years, transitioning over to doing it on YouTube, doing things live, it's gotten kind of hard to get back to that rhythm of talking to yourself or to just somebody else without people commenting, because I've had so many shows where I do get people on here commenting and it's great. And let's see, we do have a comment. It's not popping up. There it is. And we got Andrew here. Hey, what's going on, Andrew? Thanks for stopping by, popping in. I'm about to hit some DC stuff. I'm going to talk about, there's a little bit of a Flash spoiler that I may talk about here. And then Ezra Miller stuff as well. And who's this? This is Goncalo Silva. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. If Moon Knight ends up working with the rest of the MC universe, and when Deadpool comes to the MCU, I want to see them fight each other. That would be cool. I would be down to see that. But I really think when it comes to Moon Knight, I think we're going to see some things happen where he's more of along the lines coming in and going to show up occasionally within the MCU. I don't think he's going to be like an Avenger or anything like that. I really believe that this supernatural side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be very secluded, because we're going to have Blade, we're going to have Moon Knight, we're getting Werewolf by Night, we're going to have the Black Knight, a whole bunch of these characters. And while they will have some connections to the grander MCU, I think things are going to be a little secluded in a way, separate, where, yeah, there's possible for crossovers, and I think it's going to be the same thing with the X-Men, but that's next week. I do want to promote that. Next week's show, we're going to be talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what is next. So we will be talking about that next week. So make sure you tune in then, because we're going to dive in and really discuss everything that's going on with Marvel and where it's headed. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's see, Andrew. For the Flash movie, I only care about Michael Keaton's return as Batman. And I get that. I do get that. I know a lot of people only want to see the return of Batman or something like that. This little tidbit that I have here, while it's not necessarily like a huge spoiler, I've been hearing things again, and I heard this a while ago, and what I'm hearing is there will be multiple Supermen in the film, including Henry Cavill, Brandon Routh, Nick Cage, and unused Christopher Reeve footage. That is what I'm hearing. I heard that. Now, I have been trying to get some confirmation on that. The one person I spoke with is like adamant, like this stuff is going to be in the Flash movie. Of course, they did just have that test screening the other day, and we haven't heard anything about that those things popping up in that film. Now, the other person that I spoke with said that they heard the same thing about Nick Cage, but that they heard that was cut, or that was just a rumor that Nick Cage wasn't actually going to be in it. So we'll see what happens. As soon as I get more information, I will definitely, let everybody know. But as of right now, that's what I've heard. I've heard Nick Cage, Henry Cavill, Brandon Routh, and some unused Reeves footage could show up in this movie, and mostly in small cameo. That's what I heard. Let's see. Andrew. So let's see. He goes, I love the Tim Burton 1989 Batman film. Again, I've talked to you about this. I love that movie too. That was the first movie I ever saw in theaters. Love that film as well. I do enjoy Keaton as Batman, but Affleck is definitely my favorite of the Batman. He goes, whoa, 3 Supermans appearing. Holy crap. Again, that is the rumor on the street. I cannot 100% confirm that. I heard about this about a year and a half ago, and then last week I was told about this from somebody different. So being that I had 2 people explain it, or kind of tell me this, I figured I'd let all of you know, and we'll see if it happens. Like I said, the test screening happened this past week, which we'll talk a little bit about here. And yeah, we haven't heard anything about that. Is Keaton and Affleck the only Batmans in the film? As far as I'm aware, yes. The only Batman in the film are Keaton and Affleck. I know that a lot of people want to see Christian Bale pop up. There's also been people talking about, oh, what if we see George Clooney in there or something like that? I know about the same time that I originally heard about Nick Cage, which was, like I said, was like a year and a half ago or so. I did hear that there are some talks and considerations of bringing in the other Batman, that they could get in there, even possibly utilizing unused footage from someone like Val Kilmer's, Batman Forever or something like that. But I think that in the grand scheme of things, because the story around Affleck and Keaton kind of almost swapping roles in a way, where one stays in this new continuity and one goes, I think they didn't want to bring anything else in to kind of confuse or, jumble up the story at all. And as he said, I heard after the test screening, no Christian Bale is Batman. And you're right. And here's the thing about test screenings, especially because we are a year out from the movie at this point, because they delayed this movie, so it is a year out. We also know that there's multiple cuts of this film. We know that there are cuts of this film that have Affleck dying, that Affleck survives, that Zack Snyder's Justice League is canon, where Justice League is canon, where there's multiple cuts of this movie. So yes, this test screening, this is the one that they're banking on. So they did a test screening to see how it works. And obviously they're going to adjust from there. They may change things here and there, and they have plenty of time if they want to go back and do some additional photography to add some things that they want. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Andrew says, when I saw the Flash teaser, seeing Barry approach Wayne Manor from the 1989 Batman film, felt like I was back in the world Tim Burton created. Yeah, I guess a little bit. Yeah, I didn't really get that feel. I mean, I'm excited to see Keaton back, but I didn't necessarily get a feel of like, oh, this feels just like Burton's universe. I think once we see the movie, or if we see even more of an in-depth trailer of sorts, maybe I'll get that feel. But hey, great for you. I'm glad. I mean, that means the marketing is doing what they wanted to do for someone like you, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pull those fans of Keaton back into the mix and become, get excited and maybe be the ones who push this film to be what it is. But that is all I'm going to talk about the Flash spoilers right now, I think. Real Adam says, well, it looks like despite his age, Keaton will put the Batsuit back on one more time. Yeah, he is going to wear the Batsuit in this film. He is. That much I know for a fact. Obviously, he'll have stunt doubles as well and stand-ins and such. But don't rule out him being Batman down the line in different projects as well. Don't rule that out. That's still a very good possibility. At this point, it's going to be more what fits the story, what the director and writers want to do with him in future projects. We do know in Batgirl that there is going to be a flashback where we see a younger Keaton Batman doing his stuff on Gotham streets. So we're going to see plenty of the Keaton Batman in suit in some form or fashion. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'm going to kind of do this real quick. Let's do this. I just read this a comment, Andrew. If Keaton wears the 1989 or returns suit with the bat turn he does with his head, that'd be cool for nostalgia. It's gonna happen, man. Don't worry, it's happening. His little where he can't turn his neck, so he kind of turns his whole body. Yeah, I think it's gonna happen. I would not be too worried about that. I kind of skipped a couple stories here. I don't want to talk about that one too much, but maybe I will in a second. I kind of want to talk about Restore the SnyderVerse, because last week we did the Us United event celebrating 1 year of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And let me tell you, it was a great time. I had a lot of people jump on the stream, jump on and discuss, the SnyderVerse, what our expectations are, what excites us, why we love the SnyderVerse. It was a great time. And thank you to all who joined and watched in. And then thank you to all those who watched after the fact. It was great. Now, speaking of the Flash movie, Batfleck Alive, coming out of the test screenings. That test screening had Ben Affleck's Batman alive, and there's a lot of discussion about, well, what does that mean for the Snyderverse moving forward? Because if the Flash is supposed to be reestablishing the DCEU, which, again, it is, let me remind you all that this is what we're looking at, everyone, okay? This is kind of what the new timeline or continuity of the DCEU is going to be moving forward. And people don't seem to grasp that, all right? Whether they killed Affleck in the Flash movie or whether he stayed alive, this was always the outcome of the Flash movie, as well as the possibilities for the Snyderverse. And the reason, if you take a look closely, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and then it branches off. And then you have Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and anything else. And we know Affleck, Batman, is alive in those times. Now, where things have gotten muddled coming out of this test screening is that events prior to Man of Steel or prior to the end of Batman vs. Superman have been changed. And I think that's where a lot of things have gotten muddled in this idea that, oh, well, what happens in the Flash movie affects the Snyderverse being restored. And that's not the case at all. Take what's going on with this whole thing with Supergirl replacing Superman. Now, this is something that's been talked about for the last year or so. Ever since they announced that Supergirl was going to be in this film, there's been discussion about, oh, is she replacing Henry Cavill? And no, she's not. She's not replacing Henry Cavill. In the main continuity, it appears that way. But the Snyderverse Superman is Henry Cavill. Snyderverse Batman is Ben Affleck. When they continue the Snyderverse, they will be there. Okay. And I know a lot of people want to say, oh, I'm not even interested in the DCEU now if you get rid of Cavill and Affleck. Well, Affleck doesn't necessarily want to do it with anybody else. Cavill's willing to come back, but for some reason, Warner Brothers, pre-Discovery, just doesn't want to be in the Henry Cavill business. And that could go back to some of the rumors we've heard in the past where he's been difficult to work with or difficult in, coming to agreements on contracts. Again, that's all rumor. I don't have any knowledge if that is all true. But when you really think about it, Warner Brothers just doesn't want to be in the Cavill business, which I think is absolutely nuts because he's got a huge franchise over on Netflix right now that he's leading. He's been one of the front runners or talked about being one of the front runners possibly for becoming James Bond. And you have him in your pocket, Warner Brothers. Why are you going to let him go? He's one of the biggest stars right now and most recognizable superheroes right now. It's kind of ridiculous what they've been doing. But remember, the Flash movie, as I've been saying for months and months and months, is reestablishing the DCEU. There is a new timeline after the Flash. And what it does is it kind of brings in different characters, different iterations of the characters to move forward. Now, the crazy thing about that, if you really want to get crazy about this, is they could be leading to a big event where, well, let's just say crisis. The last fandom, there was a lot of allusion and alluding to a crisis event at some point in time. And I gotta credit Taylor over at the Culture Nerd. I was talking to him about this the other day, and I just I think it's too early. It's too fast to do crisis. It really doesn't make any sense. And he's like, well, you got to remember, they've got 30 plus years of content to pull from. And he's not wrong. I mean, you can go as far back as the 70s with Christopher Reeve Batman, Chris Reeve's Superman, or you can go, to 89 Batman, everything that goes on that went in the 90s, Steel with Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, they have a lot of content, and that was a joke, everyone. but they have a lot of content to pull from, not just from the past 10 years. And that's something that I seem to have forgotten. Like, if you're talking about a crisis event, you're talking about every branch of the multiverse being included with that. CW shows, everything, the sci-fi shows, just everything, anything on HBO Max. So they really have this opportunity that if they build up for, say, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this DCEU, and let's say Sasha Cal isn't cutting it as Supergirl, people aren't digging her. Let's say people don't like Leslie Grace's Batgirl, and they're like, well, maybe we should bring Batman and Superman back into it. That crisis event could eventually or essentially do that. I'm not saying that's the right way to go, because you're kind of doing that right now. You're doing that with this Flash movie, kind of adjusting and reestablishing the DCEU. To do it again in 5 or 6 years would be kind of ridiculous and pointless. But that's kind of what they could do. And I really think people need to give it a chance. I know that my hype and expectations of the Flash movie have dropped significantly, and I'm still excited, but I'm more curious than anything. Like, it's not an excitement, it's more of a curiosity of like, what could they do? And how could they do it? And why? And that's kind of where I'm at. I want to see what they're doing and what their thought process is. But again, as I keep telling everybody, this is what it looks like, guys. As of right now, this could change. After the Flash movie, we could get some other branches on that timeline. But as of right now, that's what the expectation is. So keep that all in mind. Keep that in mind. I do want to give it up for Zack Snyder. Give it up for Zack Snyder's Justice League getting the fan cheer Oscar moment, whatever it was called. That is amazing. Technically, in a roundabout way, Zack Snyder's Justice League is an Oscar winner, beating out Spider-Man No Way Home, and even Avengers Endgame, which I still don't know why they put Avengers Endgame into that. A lot of people were mad about it. And, I got to say, sitting there watching Zack Snyder's Justice League the day it came out, I remember talking to John from Spoiler Country almost immediately after watching it. And I explained to him how that scene affected me. I got somewhat emotional. There was tears in my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, this amazing moment that was just even made more impactful by the amazing music by Junkie XL. It was a great moment. It was probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite moment in all of comic book film history. But while I love that scene, it's not a cheer-worthy moment. So I get the anger and the disgruntledness of some of the Marvel fans, because when you have Toby, Andrew, and Tom all on screen at one time, those were some fan sharing moments. I mean, don't get me wrong. That moment when they all jump and they're swinging, and Tom, shoots his web and slingshots the other two. That's really freaking cool. And I know my theater got excited about that. So I get being upset about it, but you can't take away that moment in that film is great, and it does deserve to be recognized. And maybe, just maybe, this will draw more people to check out Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, or go and pick it up at their local stores or what have you and check it out, because it is a great movie. Little long, 4 hours, I get is a long time, but we did it the other day. We sat here and watched 4 hours and just did a watch along discussing the movie. It was a great time. It was a great time. So kudos, congrats to Zack Snyder and everybody behind the Snyder Cut, Junkie XL, and all of them. All right, so moving on to the rest of the show here. We're going to talk a lot now about DC, because there was a lot of stuff going on. And, it's one of those things. It's kind of like, what was it, 2 weeks ago, we really dove into DC, and we discussed, what's next for DC? What's to be excited for? But, all right. Well, before we get into that, there was Matt Reeves released a deleted scene from the Batman, And we talked about the Batman a couple weeks ago. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I didn't hate it, just wasn't a huge fan of it. And this scene with the Joker, Barry Keoghan's Joker, was interesting to say the least. I am glad they cut it from the movie because I don't think it was needed for the movie. There is nothing there that would have improved that film. Now, I will say that had it been left in the movie, I probably would have perked up a little more in my seat in the theater instead of dozing off constantly throughout the film. But that's only because I would have been like, is that the Joker? The Joker, he's talking to the Joker. Like, that's all I would have cared about. And it kind of would have taken away from everything else going on in that movie. So I get why they made it, they deleted it from the movie. They removed it. His portrayal of the Joker was very Heath Ledger-esque. The way he talked, his mannerisms reminded me of Heath Ledger. And that's fine because, he's kind of the bar for film adaptations of the Joker. That's kind of what that's what they want their Jokers to be like. And that's fine. I don't want to see a Heath Ledger Joker. Again, we had it. It was great. We could have seen more. I wish we could have seen more of Heath Ledger playing Joker, but I don't want to see somebody else trying to be a Heath Ledger Joker. Again, the scene was fine. I'm not a big fan of the look of the Joker. I don't know. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know what everybody else thinks about the Joker scene because it's one of those things. It was kind of like, oh, this is cool. Let's check this out. But it wasn't for me. Just definitely wasn't for me. This story I'm going to talk about real quickly here. I don't want to get too into it, but Ezra Miller. Our boy, Ezra Miller. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? So, we all know the story from a couple years ago where he choke slammed a girl. I think it was outside of the bar or something like that. And everybody was like, oh, it was just a playful choke, blah, 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 whatever. Okay. Nothing happened. He didn't even get a slap on the wrist from it. The woman didn't press charges, nothing like that. Then there a few weeks back, a couple months ago maybe, there was this thing that he posted on Instagram calling out for people to go attack the KKK and literally calling on for a mob to go attack the KKK. And don't get me wrong, the KKK needs to be disbanded, destroyed, removed from existence. So I understand the hatred and the desire to get rid of the KKK. But it was just a really weird type of post that he made on Instagram. And I'm not going to say it was out of character. It was just like, where did this come from? It didn't really make much sense. It just came out of nowhere. Well, then this week, we heard that Ezra Miller was put in jail. 2 events that happened at a bar where there's somebody doing karaoke. He wasn't a big fan of it. He took the microphone off. Somebody kind of got in his face. Things happened. Ezra Miller ended up going to jail. He was then bailed out by a couple who he was actually staying with. And this was all in Hawaii, mind you. And there was a couple that he was staying with. And they bailed him out of jail. Well, the other day, a couple days later, he goes and threatens their lives, kind of walks into their bedroom, steals their wallets, threatens to kill them. And now they have put a restraining order on him. I don't know what's going on with Ezra Miller. I don't know if he has some mental things going on. That is a totally different discussion for sure. I hope that he gets the help he needs because this is more of a habit that we're starting to see constant issues with him. So it would be unfortunate to see him get into the wrong type of scuffle, get into some trouble, and end up being canceled. I know there's a lot of people already calling for him to be removed from as the Flash because of this. I don't think we're there yet. I think Warner Brothers does need to sit down with him and his team and explain, like, look, you are a role model to children now. You are the Flash. You need to stand up for, those who are in trouble. You should not be getting in trouble. And I think that's a conversation that needs to happen. And I think they need to give him an ultimatum. I mean, this movie's coming out in a year, so they have time for this to blow over. They have time for Ezra to kind of get back on the right track of his own mind. But I think they really, really need to have that conversation with him big time. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think about this whole thing, because yeah, it's not looking good for him right now. Not even a little. Where are we at here? I'm about it. That's about it here. I did want to talk about the crisis. Are we leading to a crisis event? I think that's a good possibility. Let me know all of your thoughts on everything that's going on right now with DC. Probably in a few more weeks, we'll kind of dive back in and talk more DC again as things kind of get closer to things coming out, such as Black Adam and everything, as we get closer to that. But again, don't forget, next week we will be discussing Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and what's next. We're going to discuss everything going on with Moon Knight. We're going to discuss She-Hulk, Thor, Doctor Strange, and what we think is going to happen with the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward, because it's pretty crazy. And Kenneth should be here next week. I believe he will be here next week, so he'll be able to sit down and discuss this in more complete sentences. I can't think right now. I am going to try and get a guest on with us next week as well. If you're somebody who's watching this and would like to be a guest, hit me up. BTG@spoilerverse.com. You can reach me there and just say, hey, I want to be on the show. I want to be on the show at some point. You can also follow us on Twitter @BridgeGeekdoms. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more as well. So if you're somebody who doesn't get to sit there and watch live, if you're driving to work, exercising, I don't know why you want to hear my voice while you're exercising, but if you want to, you can do that. And then make sure to check out Spoilerverse Network for shows such as Spoiler Country, Hard Agree, Narrative Gutslingers, and so many more. And that's at www.spoilerverse.com. But with all that said, guys, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for those who commented and gave me something to talk about. Short show, usually what happens when it's just me by myself here. I usually get these short shows. But with all that said, one more quick thing. Be on the lookout in a couple weeks. I'm going to have another interview up. I got to sit down and have an interview with John Engel. He is somebody that he is one of the masterminds behind Three Rivers Comic Con. That's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he's the one that's helping. He's one of the ones helping to put on that show and get everything together. I had a chance to sit down and talk with him about the show. They have a show coming up this June. So talk to him about what to expect from that show, how it got to be, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So make sure you be on the lookout for that. I think you all enjoy that interview for sure. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk at all of you later. Maybe. There we go.